In the darkest corners of the galaxy, where civilizations send their unwanted to die, legends are born from the ashes of betrayal. What happens when those who seek to destroy you become the architects of your greatest triumph? When the weapon they forge in their hatred becomes the very blade that cuts down their empire? This is the story of a woman they thought was worthless. A story of how the greatest predators in the universe learned that sometimes the prey they hunt has teeth sharper than their own. They called her weak. They called her expendable. They sent her to face death itself. They had no idea they were unleashing something far more dangerous than any beast they'd ever encountered. The transport ship shuddered as it broke through Kepler 442b's atmosphere, its hull groaning against the alien winds that seemed to carry whispers of death. Dr. Elena Vasquez pressed her face against the small porthole, watching the crimson landscape below grow larger with each passing second. The planet's surface looked like an open wound against the cosmos, all jagged rocks and twisted metal structures that glinted like broken bones in the harsh light of twin suns. Final approach to Terminus Station, the pilot announced through the intercom, his voice carrying the practiced indifference of someone who had delivered countless souls to their doom. Prisoner Transport 47 Alpha preparing for landing sequence. Elena closed her eyes and tried to steady her breathing. Prisoner. The word still felt foreign on her tongue, even after 6 months in holding cells and transit ships. 6 months since the trial that had been nothing more than political theater. 6 months since Admiral Chun had looked her in the eye and smiled as he sentenced her to death by exile. The ship touched down with a violent jolt that sent Elena sprawling against the reinforced walls of her containment cell. Through the porthole, she could see figures moving across the landing platform, tall, imposing silhouettes that moved with the fluid grace of predators. The Feliner Council's representatives had come to collect their newest offering. The cell door hissed open, and Elena found herself staring at the business end of an energy rifle held by a human guard whose eyes held no compassion. Behind him stood 3 beings that made Elena's blood run cold despite all her preparation. The Feliner were magnificent in the way that apex predators were magnificent, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. They stood nearly 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in sleek fur that ranged from deep amber to midnight black. Their faces were a perfect fusion of feline and humanoid features, with large, intelligent eyes that missed nothing and mouths full of teeth designed to tear through bone and metal alike. The largest of the 3, a female with silver-streaked black fur, stepped forward. Her voice carried the rumbling undertone that all Feliner possessed, a sound that spoke to the deepest parts of human evolution, where prey animals learn to fear the approach of death. I am Commander Zerth of the 3rd Hunting Pack, she said, her English heavily accented, but precise. You are the human offering sent by your Admiralty? Elena straightened despite the chains around her wrists. She had spent her career studying alien psychology, and she knew that showing weakness to a Feliner was the quickest way to ensure a painful death. Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly of the Terran Research Division. Zarth's eyes narrowed, and Elena caught something that might have been surprise flickering across the alien's features. A scientist. Interesting. Your Admiral Chen spoke highly of your expendability. The words hit Elena like a physical blow, but she kept her expression neutral. Chen's betrayal still burned like acid in her chest, but she wouldn't give these creatures the satisfaction of seeing her pain. The second Feliner, younger with golden fur marked by black stripes, stepped closer and inhaled deeply near Elena's neck. His pupils dilated slightly, and he made a sound that was somewhere between a purr and a growl. She smells of fear, he announced, his voice carrying a note of satisfaction, but also of something else, something hidden. Zarth cuffed him across the muzzle with casual violence. Silence, Kethral. You forget your place. She turned back to Elena, circling her slowly like a predator evaluating potential prey. Tell me, human scientist, what did you do to earn such a creative punishment from your own kind? Elena met Zarath's gaze steadily. I discovered something they didn't want discovered. I asked questions they didn't want answered. I threatened the wrong people's profits and power. A sound that might have been laughter emerged from Zarath's throat. Ah, truth seeker. How noble. How foolish. She gestured to the guards. Remove her restraints. The human guards looked uncertain, but they didn't dare question a direct order from a Feliner commander. As the magnetic shackles fell away from Elena's wrists, she rubbed the raw skin underneath and tried to assess her situation. She was on a planet where the dominant species viewed humans as either cattle or entertainment. She had no weapons, no allies, and no means of escape. But she did have something else, something that Admiral Chun and his corrupt cabal had overlooked in their haste to silence her. She had knowledge. Knowledge of human military protocols, of alien psychology, and, most importantly, knowledge of why the Feliner had suddenly become so interested in live human prisoners. Zarath led them through Terminus Station, a sprawling complex built into the side of a massive cliff face. The architecture was a strange blend of Feliner design and scavenged human technology, creating a maze of corridors that seemed designed to confuse and disorient. Along the walls, Elena noticed scratches and scorch marks that told stories of violence and struggle. Other prisoners moved through the corridors under heavy guard. Humans, mostly, but she also spotted a few Centaurians and what looked like a Rigelian trader. All of them had the hollow-eyed look of people who had given up hope. Elena made a mental note to avoid catching whatever psychological disease had infected them. They passed through a series of security checkpoints, each one more heavily armed than the last. Elena counted weapon placements, guard rotations, and potential escape routes out of habit. Her training at the academy had been thorough, even if it had ultimately led to her downfall. The corridor opened into a vast chamber carved directly from the living rock of the cliff. The ceiling stretched up into darkness, and the walls were lined with cells that glowed with the soft blue light of containment fields. In the center of the space, a massive holographic display showed what Elena recognized as a map of local stellar systems. "Welcome to the culling grounds," Zarath announced with evident pride. "Here, we separate the wheat from the chaff, as your human saying goes. The strong survive to serve a greater purpose. The weak," she gestured dismissively, "the weak feed our young." A chill ran down Elena's spine as she processed the implications. This wasn't just a prison, it was a processing facility. The Feliner weren't just holding human prisoners, they were evaluating them for something specific. Kethral moved to stand beside his commander, his eyes never leaving Elena's face. "Commander, perhaps this one should be tested immediately. The scent markers suggest unusual genetic markers." Zarath's ears swiveled forward in an expression Elena had learned indicated intense interest. "Genetic markers? Explain." The younger Feliner's nostrils flared as he conducted another olfactory analysis. Elevated adrenaline production, enhanced neurochemistry, muscular density markers that suggest conditioning far beyond normal human parameters. "This one has been modified." Elena's blood turned to ice. They were right, of course, but how could they possibly detect the genetic modifications that had been classified at the highest levels of Terran military command? The enhancement program had been so secret that even most admirals didn't know it existed. Zarath's predatory smile revealed far too many sharp teeth. Well, it seems Admiral Chun has sent us a much more interesting gift than usual." She leaned close to Elena, close enough that the human could smell the alien musk of her fur and see the golden flecks in her amber eyes. "Tell me, enhanced human, what other secrets are you hiding?" Elena forced herself to remain calm, even as her enhanced nervous system flooded her bloodstream with combat chemicals her body had been designed to produce. "I don't know what you're talking about." The lie came easily, but she could tell from Zarath's expression that the Feliner wasn't buying it. The alien commander gestured to a group of guards who had been waiting in the shadows. "Take her to testing chamber 7, Zarath commanded. Full biological scan, and combat assessment. I want to know exactly what kind of weapon the humans have accidentally delivered to us. As the guards moved to surround her, Elena's mind raced through calculations and possibilities. Her enhancements were military-grade, designed to create super soldiers capable of operating behind enemy lines for extended periods. Enhanced reflexes, improved healing, increased strength and endurance, and a nervous system that could process information and react faster than any baseline human could manage. But the enhancements came with a price. They required regular doses of a synthetic hormone called Helix, 9 to remain stable. Without it, the modifications would begin to break down, causing increasingly severe symptoms that would eventually lead to organ failure and death. She had perhaps 72 hours before the withdrawal symptoms became debilitating. The guards escorted her through another maze of corridors to a chamber that looked like a cross between a medical facility and a torture chamber. Banks of alien technology hummed along the walls, and in the center of the room stood something that looked disturbingly like an examination table fitted with restraint systems. A new feliner waited for them, this one smaller and more delicate-looking than the warriors, with cream-colored fur marked by intricate patterns of brown and gold. Elena's enhanced pattern recognition immediately classified this individual as likely female and possibly a scientist or medical specialist. "I'm Healer New York Lara," the newcomer announced in accented English that was much more refined than the warriors. "I will be conducting your evaluation. Please cooperate, and the process will be less unpleasant for both of us." Elena looked around the chamber, taking inventory of potential weapons and escape routes. There were at least 6 guards in the room, all armed with energy weapons that could drop a baseline human in seconds. The walls appeared to be some kind of reinforced metal alloy, and the single exit was blocked by a heavy security door. But Elena wasn't a baseline human. "What kind of evaluation?" she asked, stalling for time while her enhanced nervous system mapped every detail of the room and began calculating tactical scenarios. New York Lara activated a holographic display that showed a 3-dimensional model of human anatomy. "We need to understand the extent of your modifications. Your body chemistry is unusual. The genetic markers suggest military enhancement, but the specific applications are unclear." Elena's heart rate spiked as she realized just how much trouble she was in. If the feliner discovered the full extent of her capabilities, they would either weaponize her or dissect her to reverse engineer the enhancement process. Neither option ended well for her. She was contemplating her limited options when alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Red warning lights bathed the chamber in an ominous glow, and she could hear shouting and the sound of weapons fire echoing through the corridors. One of the guards pressed a communication device to his ear, listened for a moment, then turned to address New York Lara with obvious agitation. "Healer, we have a situation. The Shadow Maw has escaped containment. It's moving through Sector 7 toward the prisoner blocks." Elena saw New York Lara's fur stand on end, and the healer's pupils dilated with what was clearly terror. "Impossible. The containment protocols were absolute. The creature has evolved again," the guard reported grimly. "It's adapting to our control mechanisms faster than we anticipated. Commander ZRTH is requesting immediate evacuation of all non-essential personnel." Through her enhanced hearing, Elena could make out sounds that chilled her blood. The shrieking roar of something massive and angry, the rapid-fire discharge of energy weapons, and underneath it all, the screams of whoever was unlucky enough to be in the creature's path. New York Lara's hands moved frantically over her control interfaces, clearly trying to maintain some semblance of scientific protocol even in the face of impending disaster. "We can't abandon the evaluation. This specimen may be our key to understanding human enhancement technology." The guard's patience was clearly wearing thin. "Healer, with respect, if the Shadow Maw reaches this sector, your specimen will become irrelevant very quickly. These restraints won't hold against that thing." Elena's enhanced senses picked up additional information that the others were missing. The The sound pattern of the creature's movement suggested something roughly the size of small spacecraft, and the frequency of the energy weapon discharges was decreasing, which meant either the creature was moving away from the combat zones or it was winning. The building shook as something massive impacted the structure several levels above them. Dust rained from the ceiling, and several of the guards exchanged nervous glances. "Decision time," Elena said quietly, her enhanced mind already formulating a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal. "You can spend time trying to dissect me, or you can accept my help in dealing with whatever that thing is." New York Clara's ears flattened against her skull in a display of skepticism. "You would help us?" "What?" Elena smiled grimly. "Because whatever's coming this way doesn't sound like it's particularly selective about who it kills. And because I have experience with things that aren't supposed to exist." Another impact shook the facility, this one much closer. Through the chamber's reinforced door, Elena could see shapes moving rapidly past. Feliner warriors retreating from something that was driving them back through their own stronghold. Zarath's voice crackled through the communication system, distorted by static and what sounded like weapons fire. "All personnel, code Crimson. The Shadow Maw has breached containment and is moving toward the prisoner sectors. Evacuate immediately." This is not a drill. The guards looked at each other, clearly torn between following orders and maintaining security protocols. Elena could see the exact moment when survival instincts overrode training. "Healer, we need to go. Now." New York Clara's claws extended and retracted nervously as she wrestled with the decision. Finally, she looked at Elena with what might have been desperation in her alien features. "If I release you, what guarantee do I have that you won't simply escape in the chaos?" Elena met her gaze steadily. "You don't. But I can guarantee that if you leave me chained to this table when that thing gets here, you'll have missed your chance to learn what I'm really capable of." The building shook again, and this time the lights flickered. Through the walls, Elena could hear the distinctive whine of structural support beams under stress. New York Lara made her decision. Her claws moved swiftly over the control interface, and Elena felt the restraints retract. She sat up slowly, testing her range of motion and assessing her body's condition. The enhancement modifications were still stable, but she could feel the first subtle signs of withdrawal beginning to affect her system. "What is this Shadow Maw?" she asked as she slid off the examination table. New York Clara's ears drooped in what Elena recognized as shame. "A mistake. We found it in the deep caverns beneath the planet's surface, a creature unlike anything in our databases. We thought we could study it, control it, perhaps even train it as a weapon." Elena nodded grimly. "You tried to domesticate an apex predator you didn't understand. How many people has it killed so far?" 47 of our warriors in the initial breach," one of the guards reported. "Unknown casualties in the upper levels. It's moving through the facility like it knows exactly where it wants to go." Elena's enhanced pattern recognition kicked in, analyzing the available data points. "It's hunting, not randomly killing, hunting for something specific. The question is what?" The answer came sooner than any of them expected. The heavy security door to the examination chamber suddenly buckled inward with a screech of tortured metal. Through the gap, Elena caught a glimpse of something that belonged in humanity's darkest nightmares. The Shadow Maw was roughly 12 feet long and covered in what looked like living armor made of obsidian scales. 6 legs ended in claws that could apparently tear through reinforced metal like paper, and its head was a collection of sensory organs that defied easy description. Multiple eyes of different sizes dotted its skull, and its mouth opened to reveal rows of teeth that seemed to shift and reconfigure themselves as Elena watched. But the most disturbing thing about the creature was its obvious intelligence. As it pushed through the damaged doorway, its alien eyes swept the chamber and fixed directly on Elena with what could only be described as recognition. The Feliner guards opened fire immediately, their energy weapons sending bolts of concentrated plasma toward the creature. The beams struck the Shadow Maw's armored hide and simply dissipated, as if the creature's biology had somehow adapted to energy-based attacks. Elena's enhanced nervous system shifted into combat mode, flooding her system with adrenaline and activating reflexes that had been designed to keep enhanced soldiers alive in impossible situations. Time seemed to slow as her perception accelerated, and she found herself moving before her conscious mind had even processed the threat. She rolled to the right as the shadow maw lunged forward, its claws striking the examination table where she had been standing a millisecond before. The metal surface crumpled like paper under the impact, and Elena realized that whatever this creature was, it was operating on a level far beyond anything she had encountered in her military training. The chamber erupted into chaos as the Feliner guards continued their futile attempts to bring down the creature with energy weapons. Elena's enhanced vision tracked the movement patterns of both the Shadow Maw and the defending forces, looking for any tactical advantage she could exploit. That's when she noticed something the others had missed. The creature wasn't trying to kill everyone in the room. It was specifically avoiding lethal attacks against the Feliner while focusing its attention on her. Its behavior suggested a level of strategic thinking that was both impressive and terrifying. Elena backed toward a wall-mounted equipment cabinet, her enhanced strength allowing her to tear the security locks away with her bare hands. Inside, she found what looked like medical instruments, but her pattern recognition identified several items that could be weaponized. "It's not trying to kill your people," she called out to New York Lara, who was crouched behind an overturned piece of equipment. "It wants something from me, specifically." The healer's eyes widened with understanding. "The genetic modifications. It can sense them. The creature has been exposed to enhanced human genetic material before." Elena felt a chill that had nothing to do with the facility's climate control. "You've been experimenting on enhanced humans." "Not by choice," New York Lara protested. "The specimens were delivered to us by your own military. We were told they were volunteers for a joint research program." Elena's enhanced mind processed the implications at superhuman speed. Admiral Chun hadn't just been corrupt. He had been selling enhanced humans to an alien species for experimentation. And this creature was the result of those experiments gone wrong. The Shadow Maw circled closer, its multiple eyes fixed on Elena with predatory intensity. She could see intelligence in those alien features, but also something that might have been pain or rage. Whatever had been done to this creature, it had left deep psychological scars. Elena made a decision that would have seemed insane to any baseline human. She stopped moving and stood perfectly still, allowing the Shadow Maw to approach her. "Elena, what are you doing?" New York Lara's voice was sharp with alarm. "Something stupid," Elena admitted. Then, addressing the creature directly, she spoke in a calm, steady voice. "I know what they did to you. I know what it feels like to be changed against your will, to be made into something you never chose to become." The Shadow Maw stopped moving, its head tilting in what was clearly a gesture of curiosity. Up close, Elena could see that its armored hide bore scars that looked suspiciously like surgical incisions. "They experimented on you," she continued. "Used human genetic material to try to enhance your natural abilities. But the modifications didn't integrate properly, did they? You're in constant pain, constantly fighting against changes that feel foreign to your body." The creature's pupils dilated, and it made a sound that was part growl, part keen of distress. Elena's enhanced empathy, one of the lesser-known aspects of her modifications, picked up emotional resonance from the creature that spoke of confusion, anger, and desperate loneliness. She took a careful step closer. "I understand. More than any of them could. I've been fighting the same battle, trying to remain myself while dealing with modifications I never asked for." Behind her, Elena could hear the Feliner guards whispering among themselves, clearly unsure whether to be impressed or terrified by what they were witnessing. She ignored them and focused all her attention on the creature before her. The Shadow Maw's breathing had slowed, and its aggressive posture was gradually relaxing. Elena realized that she might be looking at the galaxy's first successful human-alien hybrid, and that the creature's rampage wasn't random violence, but a desperate attempt to find someone who could understand its condition. That understanding came with a terrible revelation. If the Feliner had been experimenting with human genetic material on this scale, then Elena's exile wasn't random punishment. She had been sent here as raw material for their research program, just like countless others who had discovered inconvenient truths about Admiral Chen's operations. The facility shook again, but this time it wasn't from the Shadow Maw's rampage. Through the damaged ceiling, Elena could hear the distinctive whine of spacecraft engines. Reinforcements were arriving, and she doubted they would be as interested in peaceful resolution as she was. She looked at the creature before her, this confused, angry hybrid that represented everything that was wrong with the kind of uncontrolled experimentation that had created her own enhancements. Then, she looked at New York Lara, whose scientific curiosity was warring with obvious fear. "How many more are there?" Elena asked quietly. "More what?" New York Lara's voice was barely above a whisper. "Anansa Omans. How many more have been delivered here for your experiments?" The healer's silence was answer enough. Elena felt something cold and hard crystallize in her chest. Not anger exactly, but a sense of purpose that she hadn't felt since her court-martial. The sound of boots in the corridor announced the arrival of more Feliner warriors. Elena could hear Zaratich's voice barking orders, coordinating what was clearly intended to be a final assault on the examination chamber. Elena looked at the Shadow Maw, whose multiple eyes were fixed on her with what she was beginning to recognize as desperate hope. Then, she made a decision that would change the course of everything that followed. "I'll help you," she said to the creature. "But first, we need to get out of here alive." The Shadow Maw's response to Elena's promise was immediate and startling. The creature's aggressive posture melted away completely, replaced by what could only be described as relief. Its multiple eyes blinked in sequence, and it made a low rumbling sound that Elena's enhanced hearing identified as similar to a purr, though much deeper and more complex. "Impossible," breathed New York Lara from her position behind the overturned equipment. "The creature has never shown non-aggressive behavior toward any sentient being." "How did you?" Her question was cut off by the sound of armored boots approaching the chamber at high speed. Zaratich's voice echoed through the corridors, coordinating what sounded like a full military assault. "Seal all exits from Sector 7. Bring heavy plasma cannons and neural disruptors. Whatever has corrupted the Shadow Maw's behavior patterns must be eliminated." Elena's enhanced mind processed multiple tactical scenarios in seconds. The approaching force would be too large and too well-armed for her to fight directly, even with her modifications. But she had something they didn't expect, an ally that understood the facility's layout better than any of its builders. She turned to the Shadow Maw, speaking in the same calm tone that had seemed to reach the creature before. "Can you get us out of here? Is there another way through the facility that they might not know about?" The hybrid creature's head tilted, and Elena could almost see it thinking. Then, it moved toward what appeared to be a solid wall of the chamber. Its claws extended, revealing that they weren't just weapons. They were sophisticated tools capable of manipulating the facility systems. The wall slid aside with a hiss, revealing a maintenance tunnel that Elena's enhanced vision could see extended deep into the facility's infrastructure. The tunnel was clearly designed for the automated systems that maintain the complex, but it was large enough for them to move through. "The creature knows about the service tunnels," Elena called to New York Lara. "But I'm guessing your people aren't going to listen to reasonable explanations at this point." New York Lara's ears flattened against her skull as she considered her options. The sound of approaching forces was getting louder, and Elena could hear the distinctive whine of heavy weapons being powered up. "If I accompany you," the healer said carefully, "I would be considered a traitor to my own species." Elena shrugged. "And if you stay, you'll probably be considered an acceptable casualty when they start shooting. Your choice." The decision was made for all of them when the first heavy plasma blast punched through the chamber's main door. The energy beam struck the far wall and vaporized a section of equipment, filling the air with toxic smoke and the acrid smell of melted metal. New York Lara made a sound that was probably cursing in her native language and scrambled toward the service tunnel. I choose survival. Elena gestured for the Shadow Maw to lead the way, and the creature immediately disappeared into the tunnel with fluid grace. She followed, with New York Lara close behind, just as the chamber's main door exploded inward under concentrated fire. The service tunnel was a cramped, humid space lined with pipes, conduits, and maintenance interfaces that hummed with alien technology. Elena's enhanced senses adapted quickly to the reduced light, but she could hear New York Lara struggling behind her. "Where does this lead?" Elena asked the Shadow Maw, though she wasn't sure if the creature could understand complex questions. To her surprise, the hybrid paused and manipulated one of the wall-mounted interfaces. A holographic map appeared in the tunnel, showing the facility's complete layout. Elena's pattern recognition immediately identified their current position and several potential routes through the complex. "You can access their systems," she observed. "That's not just enhanced intelligence. You're interfaced with their technology directly." The Shadow Maw made a sound that might have been affirmation, and Elena noticed for the first time that some of the scars on its hide weren't from surgery. They were from technological implants that had been forcibly integrated into its biology. They didn't just use human genetic material, New York Lara explained quietly from behind them. They attempted to create a hybrid that could interface directly with our computer systems. The goal was to develop a biological weapon that could infiltrate and control enemy technology. Elena felt sick. And the human subjects? What happened to them? New York Lara's silence was eloquent. Elena's enhanced empathy picked up waves of guilt and shame from the Felin healer, confirming what she already suspected. How many died in the process? 17 confirmed fatalities, New York Lara admitted. Unknown numbers who didn't survive the initial modification procedures. The Shadow Maw is the only successful hybrid, but the psychological integration was incomplete. Elena looked at the creature moving ahead of them through the tunnel. "You mean it remembers being human? Fragments, emotions, pain." The original personality wasn't completely overwritten by the hybrid neural structure. It exists in a state of constant psychological conflict between its human memories and its alien biology. The tunnel shook as explosions echoed through the facility above them. Elena's enhanced hearing picked up the sounds of a full-scale military response. Atmospheric fighters, heavy ground vehicles, and what sounded like enough firepower to level several city blocks. "They're not just trying to recapture us," Elena realized. "They're trying to contain a potential security breach. If word gets out about what they've been doing here, it could trigger a war between our species." The Shadow Maw stopped at a junction and consulted another interface. The holographic map updated, showing new routes and what appeared to be security camera feeds from throughout the facility. Elena could see Feliner warriors moving through corridors in coordinated search patterns, while automated defense systems swept the complex with sensor arrays. But she also saw something else, something that made her enhanced blood run cold with fury. "There," she said, pointing to a section of the map that showed rows of containment cells. "Those are prisoner holding areas. How many humans are still alive in this facility?" New York Lara consulted her own interface, her claws moving rapidly over alien controls. Current manifest shows 23 human prisoners in various stages of the modification process. Another 15 are scheduled for termination following failed integration attempts. Elena's modifications kicked into overdrive, flooding her system with combat chemicals that made her vision sharper and her reflexes faster. "We're not leaving without them. Impossible, nous la pratistit." The holding areas are in the most heavily defended section of the facility. Even if we could reach them, the prisoners are maintained in medical stasis. Moving them would require specialized equipment, and then we'll get the equipment, Elena interrupted. She turned to the Shadow Maw, whose multiple eyes were fixed on her with what she was learning to recognize as intense attention. "Can you access the prisoner holding systems from here?" The creature's response was immediate and surprising. It interfaced with the tunnel's control systems and brought up detailed schematics of the holding areas. Elena's enhanced pattern recognition immediately began calculating rescue scenarios, but what she saw made her pause. These aren't just holding cells, she realized. They're surgical suites. You're performing operations on live prisoners. New York Clara's ears drooped with what Elena was learning to recognize as shame. The modification process requires the subjects to remain conscious during certain phases. The neural integration cannot be completed under anesthesia. Elena turned to face the healer directly, her enhanced senses picking up the alien's elevated stress indicators. You've been torturing people for months. People who were sent here by their own military leaders as part of some kind of deal. I followed protocols established by the Joint Research Agreement, New York Lara said defensively. The documentation indicated that all human subjects had volunteered for experimental enhancement procedures. Did you ever actually talk to any of them? Ask them if they had volunteered. New York Lara's silence was answer enough. Elena felt her enhanced nervous system cycling through combat preparedness modes that she had hoped never to use against a non-hostile target. The facility shook again, and this time the lights in the tunnel flickered and went out. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in an eerie red glow that made the tunnel feel even more claustrophobic. Decision time, Elena announced. I'm going after those prisoners. You can help me, or you can find your own way out of this facility. But I'm not leaving anyone else to be experimented on. The Shadowma made a complex sound that Elena's enhanced hearing identified as having multiple harmonic components, almost like it was speaking in several different frequencies simultaneously. To her surprise, New York Lara responded in what sounded like the same harmonic pattern. It agrees with you, the healer translated. The creature wants to free the other prisoners as well. It has been lonely. The prospect of finding others like itself is highly motivating. Elena realized that she had just gained an ally whose capabilities she was only beginning to understand. What else can you do? She asked the Shadowma directly. In response, the creature demonstrated its technological interface abilities by accessing multiple systems simultaneously. The tunnel around them came alive with holographic displays showing real-time surveillance feeds, facility schematics, security protocols, and what appeared to be detailed personnel files on every individual in the complex. You're not just interfaced with their systems, you're actively hacking them. The Shadowma's multiple eyes focused on Elena with what she was beginning to recognize as pride. It manipulated another interface, and suddenly Elena found herself looking at files that made her enhanced blood boil with rage. The documents detailed not just the current experimental program, but years of similar operations. Hundreds of humans had been delivered to various Feliner research facilities as part of what appeared to be a galaxy-wide trafficking network. Admiral Chen wasn't just corrupt. He was part of an organized conspiracy that spanned multiple star systems. This is bigger than just this facility, Elena said grimly. Chen and his people have been selling humans to alien species for experimental purposes for at least 5 years. And it's not just the Feliner. I'm seeing delivery records to research stations operated by at least 4 different alien civilizations. New York Lara looked genuinely shocked as she reviewed the files. I was told this was a small, isolated research program. I had no idea the scope was so extensive. Elena's enhanced pattern recognition was processing the implications at superhuman speed. The enhanced humans who end up here aren't random prisoners. You're specifically getting people who discovered evidence of the trafficking network. People who asked too many questions, investigated the wrong shipping manifests, or stumbled across classified communications. Like you, New York Lara observed. Like me, which means that somewhere in those holding cells, we're likely to find people with information that could bring down this entire operation. Elena turned to the Shadowma. Can you identify which prisoners have military or intelligence backgrounds? The creature accessed another system and projected a list of current prisoners with detailed background information. Elena's enhanced memory immediately flagged several names. people she recognized as former colleagues who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances over the past 2 years. Lieutenant Sarah Chun, Elena read from the list. No relation to the Admiral, I assume. Former intelligence analyst who was investigating irregular supply chain activities. Captain Marcus Webb, military prosecutor who was building cases against several high-ranking officers for corruption. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, geneticist who was researching the long-term effects of human enhancement programs. Elena realized that the people in those holding cells represented a significant threat to the conspiracy that had resulted in her exile. They're not just prisoners, they're witnesses. People who have pieces of information that could expose the entire trafficking network. The facility's emergency alarms suddenly changed pitch, shifting from the standard containment breach warning to something that Elena's military training identified as a facility-wide evacuation signal. "What does that mean?" she asked New York Lara. The healer's fur was standing on end, a clear sign of extreme agitation. Total facility sterilization protocol. They're going to destroy the entire complex rather than risk exposure of the research program. Elena's enhanced nervous system shifted into emergency mode as the implications hit her. How long do we have? Standard sterilization protocol allows for 30 minutes of evacuation time before the fusion charges detonate. Elena looked at the shadow maw, whose multiple eyes were reflecting the emergency lighting in patterns that suggested high-level cognitive activity. "Can you override the sterilization protocol?" The creature's response was immediate. It began interfacing with multiple systems simultaneously, its technological implants glowing with increased activity. Holographic displays showed access attempts to the facility's most secure systems, but Elena could see that the creature was encountering resistance. The sterilization protocol is isolated from the main computer systems, New York Lara explained. It can only be controlled from the primary command center, and only with authorization from at least 3 senior staff members. Elena's enhanced mind began formulating a plan that was equal parts brilliant and suicidal. Then, we get to the command center. But first we free those prisoners. If this facility is going to be destroyed, we're not leaving anyone behind to die in the explosion. The shadow maw made a series of complex harmonic sounds, and Elena got the distinct impression that the creature was expressing approval of her decision. It manipulated the tunnel's control systems, plotting a route through the facility that would take them past the prisoner holding areas and then to the command center. "This plan is insane," New York Lara protested. "The holding areas are heavily defended, and the command center will be swarming with security personnel. Even with the creature's abilities, the odds of success are minimal." Elena smiled grimly, feeling her enhanced systems cycling up to full combat readiness. "Lady, you have no idea what I'm capable of when I'm properly motivated. And right now I am very properly motivated." The tunnel shook again as more explosions echoed through the facility. Elena could hear the sound of spacecraft launching, evacuation vessels carrying the facility's staff to safety while leaving the prisoners to die in the sterilization protocol. But she could also hear something else, the sound of energy weapons being discharged in sustained patterns that suggested active combat. Someone else in the facility was fighting back against the evacuation efforts. The prisoners, Elena realized. Some of them have broken free on their own. The shadow maw accessed the surveillance systems and confirmed Elena's suspicion. In several sections of the holding areas, enhanced humans were engaged in running battles with Feliner security forces. But the prisoners were outnumbered and outgunned, and Elena could see that they wouldn't be able to hold out much longer. "New plan," Elena announced. "We link up with the escaped prisoners and coordinate a group breakout. If we can combine our capabilities with theirs, we might actually have a chance of reaching the command center before the facility is destroyed." New York Lara looked at Elena as if she had declared her intention to wrestle a star into submission. "You're talking about coordinating a military operation using prisoners who have been subjected to traumatic experimentation in a facility that's about to explode against security forces that know the terrain better than you do." Elena nodded. "Exactly. Should be fun." The Shadow Maw made a sound that Elena's enhanced hearing identified as possibly laughter. It manipulated the tunnel controls, and Elena found herself looking at a detailed tactical assessment of the situation throughout the facility. The good news was that the escaped prisoners were all enhanced humans with military backgrounds, meaning they had training and capabilities that made them formidable opponents. The bad news was that the Feliner security forces had clearly been preparing for this possibility and were using weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter human enhancement advantages. They've done this before, Elena realized as she studied the tactical displays. This isn't the first time enhanced prisoners have attempted to escape. They've learned from previous incidents and adapted their countermeasures. 7 previous escape attempts over the past 18 months, New York Lara confirmed. None were successful. The longest lasted approximately 4 hours before all escapees were recaptured or eliminated. Elena felt a cold smile spread across her face. Well then, it's a good thing I'm not planning to escape. I'm planning to end this place permanently. The Shadow Maw's multiple eyes fixed on Elena with what she was becoming convinced was approval and anticipation. The creature manipulated several interfaces simultaneously, and Elena found herself looking at detailed schematics of the facility's power systems, structural weak points, and security vulnerabilities. You want to help me bring this whole place down, don't you? Elena asked the creature. Its response was a harmonic sound that needed no translation. Elena turned to New York Lara, whose ears were flattened against her skull in an expression of pure terror. Last chance to find your own way out, Elena told the healer. Because what we're about to do is going to be very dangerous and very permanent. New York Lara looked at Elena, then at the Shadow Maw, then at the holographic displays showing the locations of the imprisoned humans who were fighting for their lives throughout the facility. I became a healer to preserve life, she said finally, not to enable its destruction for research purposes. I will help you. Elena nodded, feeling her enhanced nervous system settling into the focused calm that preceded combat operations. Good, because we're going to need all the help we can get. She turned back to the tactical displays, her enhanced pattern recognition already formulating strategies that would have been impossible for a baseline human to conceive or execute. The next phase of their operation would require perfect coordination, split-second timing, and a level of violence that would make the facility's previous security breaches look like minor disturbances. But first, they had to reach the other prisoners before the security forces overwhelmed them. And they had to do it while racing against a countdown timer that would end in the complete destruction of everything within a 50-kilometer radius. Elena looked at the Shadow Maw, whose technological implants were glowing brighter as it interfaced with more systems throughout the facility. Ready to go save some lives and burn this place to the ground? The creature's response was a harmonic roar that echoed through the tunnel and made Elena's enhanced senses tingle with anticipation. It was time to find out exactly what she and her unlikely allies were capable of when properly motivated. The service tunnel opened into a maintenance bay that hummed with the activity of automated systems frantically trying to maintain facility operations during the emergency. Elena's enhanced senses immediately cataloged potential threats and opportunities. Surveillance cameras at the Shadow Maw was already disabling weapon storage lockers that her enhanced strength could easily breach, and, most importantly, a direct access route to the prisoner holding areas. But what caught her attention most was the sound of gunfire getting closer. "Contact ahead," she whispered to her unlikely team. At least 2 enhanced humans engaged with Feliner security forces approximately 50 meters northeast of our position. The Shadow Maw's multiple eyes focused in the direction Elena indicated, and it made a series of rapid interface connections with the facility systems. Holographic displays showed the tactical situation in real time. 2 human prisoners had barricaded themselves in a storage facility and were holding off at least 8 Feliner warriors armed with heavy weapons. Elena recognized the tactical pattern immediately. Their former military, professional-grade positioning, and fire discipline. But they're running low on ammunition and medical supplies. New York Lara consulted her own interface, accessing medical monitoring systems that tracked the physical condition of all prisoners in the facility. Lieutenant Sarah Chun and Captain Marcus Webb, she read from the display, both showing elevated stress indicators and minor injuries consistent with combat operations. Elena felt a surge of hope. Sarah and Marcus were exactly the kind of ally she needed. People with intelligence backgrounds who might have crucial information about the trafficking network and military training that would make them effective in the kind of asymmetric warfare they were about to engage in. Can you get us close enough to make contact without alerting the security forces? Elena asked the Shadow Maw. The creature's response was to manipulate the facility's environmental controls, gradually reducing the lighting in the corridors between their position and the embattled prisoners. Then, it accessed the communication systems and began broadcasting what sounded like standard evacuation announcements. But Elena's enhanced hearing picked up subtle harmonic patterns woven into the messages. "You're masking our approach with false audio signatures," she realized, "making it sound like we're part of the evacuation procedures." The Shadow Maw's technological capabilities continued to impress her. It wasn't just interfaced with the facility's systems. It was actively rewriting the operational protocols in real time to support their mission. They moved through the darkened corridors with Elena taking point, her enhanced senses scanning for threats while the Shadow Maw provided electronic support, and New York Lara monitored the overall tactical situation. The facility around them was a maze of interconnected chambers and passages, but Elena's enhanced pattern recognition was already building a comprehensive mental map of their environment. The sound of weapons fire grew louder as they approached the storage facility where Sarah and Marcus had taken shelter. Elena could hear the distinctive whine of Feliner energy weapons and the sharp crack of human kinetic firearms, a sound that told her the prisoners had managed to acquire proper military equipment from somewhere. She signaled for the others to halt and conducted a careful reconnaissance of the combat zone. 8 Feliner warriors had the storage facility surrounded, but their positioning suggested they were more interested in containment than assault. Elena's tactical analysis indicated they were probably waiting for reinforcements before attempting a final push. That gave her an opportunity. Elena activated her enhancement modifications to full combat readiness, feeling her nervous system flood with synthetic hormones that increased her reaction time, strength, and sensory acuity. The world seemed to slow down as her enhanced perception kicked in, allowing her to process information and formulate tactical responses faster than any baseline human could manage. She gestured to the Shadow Maw, indicating her plan through a series of hand signals that her enhanced pattern recognition suggested the creature would understand. To her satisfaction, it responded with harmonic sounds that seemed to indicate comprehension and agreement. The attack came from 3 directions simultaneously. Elena emerged from the shadows behind the Feliner position with enhanced speed that made her nearly invisible to their natural senses. The Shadow Maw struck from above, dropping from a ceiling access point with claws extended and technological implants blazing. And New York Lara provided electronic warfare support by interfering with the Feliner warriors' communication systems and targeting sensors. Elena's first target never knew what hit him. Her enhanced strength allowed her to strike with enough force to disable without killing, and her enhanced reflexes let her move from one opponent to the next faster than they could track. The Feliner were formidable warriors, but they had been trained to fight baseline humans, not someone whose modifications made her into a living weapon. The Shadow Maw's assault was even more devastating. Its hybrid nature gave it capabilities that confused and terrified the Feliner warriors. It moved like one of their own kind, but fought with techniques and technologies they didn't understand. Its claws could tear through their body armor, and its technological interface abilities allowed it to turn their own weapons against them. The entire engagement lasted less than 30 seconds. When it was over, 8 Feliner warriors lay unconscious or incapacitated, and Elena was already moving toward the storage facility where Sarah and Marcus were barricaded. "Friendly contact," she called out, using military protocol, she hoped they would recognize. Enhanced human with allies seeking to link up with escaped prisoners. The response came immediately. Identify yourself and state your mission, a woman's voice called back. Elena recognized Sarah Chen's vocal patterns from their previous service together. Dr. Elena Vasquez, formerly of the Terran Research Division. My mission is to extract all surviving prisoners and permanently disable this facility's research capabilities. There was a pause, then the sound of barricades being moved. The storage facility door opened to reveal two figures that made Elena's enhanced heart skip a beat. Sarah Chen looked like she had been through hell. Her standard-issue prisoner clothing was torn and blood-stained, and Elena's enhanced vision could see evidence of recent surgical procedures on her arms and neck. But her eyes were clear and focused, and she held a Feliner energy rifle with the competent grip of someone who knew how to use it. Marcus Webb was in better physical condition, but Elena's enhanced empathy picked up psychological trauma indicators that suggested he had endured significant mental stress. He was armed with what appeared to be improvised explosive devices made from facility and maintenance equipment. Elena. Sarah's voice carried disbelief and hope in equal measure. How the hell did you end up here? Long story involving Admiral Chun, political corruption, and a very uncomfortable exile, Elena replied grimly. What's your situation? How many other prisoners are still alive? Marcus gestured toward the facility's interior. We counted at least 15 others when we started our breakout attempt. Most are in the medical sections undergoing active experimentation. Sarah and I were scheduled for neural integration procedures when the alarm started. Elena felt her enhanced nervous system surge with combat chemicals as the implications hit her. Neural integration. They were going to do to you what they did to... She gestured toward the Shadow Maw, who had been observing the reunion with obvious interest. Sarah's eyes widened as she got her first good look at the hybrid creature. What is that thing? Someone like us, Elena said quietly. Someone who was modified against their will and is now looking for a way to make the people responsible pay for what they've done. New York Lara stepped forward, her ears flattened in an expression of shame. I was involved in the modification procedures. I can provide intelligence about the facility's layout, security systems, and current experimental protocols. Marcus's grip tightened on his improvised weapons. You're one of them. Why should we trust anything you say? Because she's risking her life to help us, Elena interrupted. And because right now, we need all the allies we can get. This facility is set to self-destruct in approximately 25 minutes. And there are 15 people who will die in the explosion if we don't reach them first. Sarah checked her weapon and looked at the tactical situation with the professional assessment of someone trained in military intelligence. The medical sections are heavily defended. We tried to reach them earlier and barely made it out alive. They've got automated defense systems specifically designed to counter enhanced human capabilities. Elena smiled grimly. Good thing we brought someone who can turn their own systems against them. The Shadow Maw interfaced with a nearby control panel and projected a holographic map showing the current status of the medical sections. Elena's enhanced pattern recognition immediately identified several tactical approaches, but what caught her attention was evidence of recent security modifications. They've been upgrading their containment protocols, she observed. These automated defense systems weren't part of the original facility design. They've been specifically installed to prevent enhanced humans from escaping. 7 previous escape attempts, Marcus confirmed. We found evidence that other enhanced prisoners have tried to break out over the past 18 months. None of them made it. Elena felt her enhanced determination crystallizing into something that was part tactical planning and part cold fury. Well, they've never dealt with someone who has been specifically trained to operate behind enemy lines against technologically superior opponents. She turned to address her assembled team. Here's the situation. We have approximately 20 minutes to reach 15 prisoners, neutralize automated defense systems, evacuate medical patients who may not be able to move under their own power, and Either disable the facility's self-destruct system or get everyone to minimum safe distance before detonation. Nula est stable. Impossible. Even if we could reach the medical sections, the evacuation procedures alone would require. Nothing is impossible, Elena interrupted. Just very, very difficult. Sarah, what kind of intelligence did you gather about the trafficking network before you were captured? Sarah's expression hardened. Enough to know that this facility is just one node in a network that spans at least 12 star systems. Chun and his people have been selling enhanced humans to multiple alien species for at least 5 years. The total number of victims is probably in the thousands. Elena felt her enhanced nervous system cycle through combat preparation modes as the full scope of the conspiracy became clear. Marcus, what legal evidence were you building before your capture? Financial records showing payment transfers between high-ranking Terran military officials and shell corporations operating in alien space. Communication intercepts indicating coordination between human traffickers and alien research facilities. Shipping manifests showing human cargo being transported to unauthorized destinations. Elena's enhanced memory was already processing the implications. Between the three of us, we have enough evidence to expose and destroy the entire trafficking network, which means we're not just rescuing prisoners. We're preserving critical intelligence that could save thousands of future victims. The facility shook as another series of explosions echoed through the complex. Elena's enhanced hearing identified the sounds as fusion charges being placed by evacuation teams. The sterilization protocol was already beginning. Decision time, Elena announced. We could try to escape on our own and probably make it to safety before the facility explodes. Or we can attempt a rescue operation that will almost certainly get us all killed, but might save 15 lives and preserve evidence that could prevent thousands of future victims. Sarah and Marcus exchanged glances, and Elena could see the military training and moral commitment warring with survival instincts in their expressions. I didn't survive 18 months of alien experimentation just to abandon other people to the same fate, Sarah said finally. Marcus nodded grimly. I've been building cases against these bastards for 2 years. I'm not walking away before the job is finished. Elena looked at New York Lara, whose fur was standing on end with what was clearly terror. What about you? You can still get to an evacuation point and probably make it off-planet before anyone asks too many questions about your involvement. The Feliner healer looked at the holographic displays showing the locations of the imprisoned humans, then at the Shadow Maw, whose multiple eyes were fixed on her with obvious expectation. I became a healer to preserve life, New York Lara said quietly. For too long, I have allowed my fear and my loyalty to my species to override my fundamental ethical commitments. I will not abandon these people to die for my mistakes. Elena felt something that might have been pride warming her enhanced heart. Good, because what we're about to attempt is going to require perfect coordination and absolutely no room for doubt or hesitation. She turned to the Shadow Maw, whose technological implants were already interfacing with multiple facility systems. Can you map the most efficient route to all 15 prisoners while providing electronic warfare support against their automated defenses? The creature's response was immediate and comprehensive. Holographic displays showed detailed tactical routes through the facility, real-time status updates on prisoner locations and conditions, and what appeared to be a sophisticated plan for systematically disabling the automated defense systems. Incredible, breathed Marcus as he studied the projections. It's not just planning our approach. It's creating contingency plans for multiple scenarios and adaptive responses to changing tactical situations. Elena nodded. Our new friend here has capabilities that go far beyond anything in the standard enhancement protocols. The question is whether we can coordinate our abilities effectively enough to pull this off. Sarah was already checking her weapons and equipment. What's the plan? Elena smiled with the cold confidence of someone whose enhanced nervous system was fully committed to a mission profile. We're going to do something that's never been attempted before. We're going to conduct a coordinated rescue operation against a facility that was specifically designed to contain people with our capabilities, using an alien hybrid that can hack their systems in real time, supported by intelligence assets who know exactly what we're up against. She gestured toward the holographic displays. The Shadow Maw will provide electronic warfare support and technological infiltration. Sarah and Marcus will handle tactical coordination and prisoner evacuation. New York Lara will provide medical support and facility intelligence. And I'm going to do what I was enhanced to do, operate behind enemy lines against impossible odds. The facility's emergency lighting shifted to a deeper red as the sterilization countdown continued. Elena's enhanced hearing could track the progress of evacuation teams throughout the complex, and she realized they were running out of time even faster than she had calculated. 18 minutes until detonation, she announced. That gives us approximately 12 minutes for the rescue operation and 6 minutes for evacuation to minimum safe distance. Marcus laughed grimly. You do realize that minimum safe distance for a fusion detonation is approximately 50 kilometers, right? There's no way we can get that far in 6 minutes. Elena's enhanced mind was already processing alternatives. Then, we don't evacuate. We prevent the detonation. Ow! Sarah demanded. The sterilization protocol is controlled from the primary command center, which is probably defended by the facility's entire remaining security force. Elena looked at the Shadow Maw, whose multiple eyes were reflecting the emergency lighting in patterns that suggested high-level cognitive processing. Can you access the command center systems remotely? The creature's response was a series of harmonic sounds that New York Lara translated with obvious reluctance. It says the command center systems are isolated from the main network. Physical access is required to override the sterilization protocol. Elena felt her enhanced nervous system settling into the focused calm that preceded the most dangerous phase of any operation. Then, we're going to take the command center. After we rescue the prisoners. Her team looked at her as if she had declared her intention to wrestle a black hole into submission. Elena, Sarah said carefully, that's not a rescue mission. That's a military assault against a fortified position defended by forces that know we're coming. Elena nodded. Exactly. Should be interesting. The Shadow Maw made a sound that Elena's enhanced hearing identified as definitely laughter. It was time to find out exactly what they were all capable of when facing impossible odds.